Welcome to Rambam Medef. Today we'll be discussing the Rambam Hilchas Zechio Matana Perek Dalet Halacha Zayin. First he talks about a katan, how a katan cannot acquire things. V'chein hashaita, and so too a shaita, a person who is mentally compromised, mentally incompetent. Eina zeicha, he cannot acquire things, whether a gift, whether an acquisition. Loi la'atzmai, v'loi la'acherim. Neither can he do it for himself, or could he acquire something on behalf of someone else. V'hamezaka l'shaita. However, if someone wants to be acquiring something on behalf of the shaita, ayidei ben das, and he is a competent person, mentally competent, zacha, he acquires it. In other words, you don't have to acquire it yourself. Another person could acquire it for you, because there's a din, Zachin la'adam shalei b'fanav, you could acquire things for another person without the person's knowledge, because it's assumed that it's for that person's benefit and that person would want it, and therefore you become like a shliach, you become the person's agent, and since you're a bardas, you're qualified to and competent to acquire things, you could acquire it on behalf of the shaitan. That's the halacha of the Rambam. So the question is asked, the Competency Siman Reish Mem Gimel asked the question, the Gemara in Bav Metzia Daf Ayin Aleph talks about the difference between a katan and a nachri. That if someone wants to acquire something on behalf of the katan, of a minor, he can do that. Because the whole idea of Zachin la'adam shlei b'fanav, you could acquire something for someone without their presence, without their knowledge, is based on the concept of shlichus, that you become their shliach. Even though the person didn't expressly appoint you to be your shliach, but it's as if you appointed them, because you would have wanted that that person should do it for you. So a katan, even though a katan himself cannot be a shliach because he's a minor, but asi l'klal shlichus, he will eventually become a competent person, an adult who has the ability to become a shliach. So even though now that he is still a katan, he is included in the concept of shlichus, and therefore you could acquire something on his behalf. Masha'en kain, a nachri, is lo yasel l'klal shlichus. He's not going to become a shliach, and because he'll never become a shliach, he is totally not capable of acquiring something by appointing someone to be his shliach. So if that's the case, a shaita is no different from a nachri. A shaita also, unlike a katan who will become an adult, a shaita is not going to become mentally competent. If so, he is totally not included in the whole category of shlichus. So how could you become his shliach? He's not qualified to be someone who designates someone else to become his shliach. That's the question of the Competency Heschel. And the Competency says, and you can't answer that the shaita could be healed. It's possible for a shaita to be healed. And if that's the case, then he could be considered to be a bar shlichus. So if that's the case, he says the same thing could be true with a nachri. A nachri could be nizgayer. He could convert, and then he'll become qualified to be a shliach, to make a shliach. If that's the case, what's the difference between a nachri and a shaita? So there's a rush in ksubas that distinguishes between a shaita that is always incompetent and a shaita who is itim shaita, v'itim cholim. Sometimes he exhibits signs of incompetency, of mental incompetency, and sometimes he's healthy. So the shaita will also become lidei shlichus. That's the Rosh Shita. The Rambam doesn't make that distinction. If so, what's the basis to say that a shaita is any different from a nachri? If a nachri cannot become a shliach, cannot make a shliach for him, can't be zeicha for the nachri, then why could you be zeicha for the shaita? So the Ktsos concludes that there's no difference. That is, that the only time you can say the svara, the logic of it, he comes l'idei shlichus, is with a katan. A katan doesn't have to do anything to become an adult. It's automatic. But when you have to do something, the shaita has to be healed, and the nachri has to go through gerus. In that case, we don't say it's asel l'idei shlichus. He'll come to the point of being able to be included in the category of shlichus. So, be'emes, you could say there's a fundamental difference. The difference is that when we say that a shaita is not shaykh to shlichus, that doesn't mean that he's not shaykh to shlichus. It means he has a meniyat stadis. He has a impediment to his being able to be a shliach or to make a shliach. Why? Because he has this machla. That's not his natural status. The natural status of every yid is that he's bar l'idei shlichus, that he has connection to all Torah mitzvahs. The only thing is, he has a meniyat stadis. He has an illness. So you have to remove that meniyat stadis. That's not called that it's lacking some action. it's not lacking action. The action is already there. He's already shaykh to shlichus be'etzem, essentially, but there's a meniyat stadis, a side impediment, and that side impediment can be removed. And therefore, since it could be removed, it's considered that he's asil idei shlichus. Masha'enken a nachri, the nachri's essential status is that he's not a bar chayuva. He has no chiyuv. And even though there's a famous chidah that says that we say not Goyshin is Gayer, but Gershon is Gayer, because he already has a kesher to being a Yid, he has a neshama, a nitzos, a spark, but al pi halacha, he's considered to be a lav bar shlichos. He has no kesher to it. It's not that you have to remove a maniyat stadis, it's he has to go through a transformation. And if that's the case, he's never going to be, he's not considered asil idei shlichus, and therefore he's not shaykh that someone should become his shliach. Masha'en kein hashaita is shaykh that he should become healed, and then he reverts to his essential status that he is a bar chayuva, that he is shaykh to shlichus.